Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right, we're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go! I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
Wouldn't it be cool if we lived like this? Asked Levi as he talked to Ivy while doing a perfect handstand. In handstand land, giggled Ivy. No, replied Levi, returning to his feet and standing up. I mean in a world where everything was upside down. You know, like where we could walk in the sky and the ground would stretch out over our heads? Ivy just looked at her brother, not knowing what to say. It was an interesting concept, but it would be really cool to have birds flying around at your feet or bunnies and squirrels scurrying around overhead. But then she let herself really start to picture such a world, and as she did, Ivy started to understand what Levi was saying. I guess it would be cool to look up and see rivers and streams flowing over our heads and to hop from cloud to cloud on our walk to school, said Ivy, doing a handstand to get a better perspective of this new world. Exactly, replied Levi. Imagine if tree branches stretched down from the sky, and when it rained, the raindrops flew up from the sky under our feet like the world's biggest sprinkler. That would be amazing, exclaimed Ivy, pretending to dance around in a rainstorm. And I would call it Topsy Turvy, said Levi. Topsy what? Asked Ivy. Topsy Turvy, Levi repeated. It's another way to say upside down, except it sounds way more fun. You're right, it does sound more fun, said Ivy with a big smile. And now that they both had this wacky upside down thought in their heads, they couldn't think of anything else. As the afternoon rolled on, Levi and Ivy added to their grand idea of creating this topsy-turvy wonderland and tried to think of a way to make their dream become a reality. They drew pictures of what topsy-turvy would look like, filled with flowers and vines raining down from the ground, which now was above their heads. They drew an upside-down playground in the sky and rainbows now so close you could touch them. They drew a night sky around their feet, and now with this new planetary placement, anyone who lived in this magical land could skip between stars, climb on the moon, ride a shooting star, or walk from planet to planet. Levi and Ivy were just having fun that afternoon, creating a wonderful place that was nothing like where they lived. But what seemed like an afternoon game would end up teaching them both a very important lesson. As the day went on, all their excitement and creativity had created something amazing. After dinner, Levi and Ivy continued to work on Topsy Turvy, and by bedtime, they were still full of ideas, but quite tired. They decided to both sleep in Levi's room so they could work on more enchanting drawings before they went to sleep. How cute would it be to look up and see little chipmunks scampering by? Asked Ivy as she yawned and worked on yet another picture of their upside-down land. Or how cool would it be to have planes fly right by you as you're playing outside? Said Levi. I really wish this upside-down land existed, even for just one day. Me too. What if it really did? Said Ivy as her sleepiness won out and her drawing pad and marker fell from her hand onto the floor by her bed. What if it really did? Said Levi as he closed his eyes too and drifted off to sleep. Maybe we'll dream about it tonight. Except that night, Levi and Ivy wouldn't be going to Dreamland. They would be going to a place they had created themselves. Somewhere just as amazing, where they would see amazing things, meet amazing creatures, go on an amazing adventure, and learn a pretty amazing lesson at the end of it all. As they felt themselves falling to sleep, Levi and Ivy thoughts filled with more wonderful things that existed in Topsy Turvy. Their made-up, marvelous, upside-down world. Then before they knew it, they were standing next to each other in the backyard. Ivy, are we dreaming? Asked Levi, looking around. It looks like our normal backyard, but something seems a bit different, answered Ivy. Just look at the ground. Levi joined Ivy and inspected the ground beneath their feet. The grass seemed dull and hazy, like it was out of focus. When they looked up at the sky, they noticed the same thing. Something just wasn't right. Well, being the curious kids that they were, they decided to take a closer look. That meant they were off on an adventure. They walked out of their backyard and down the street. They continued past their school and park where they played before they made it to the woods at the edge of their town. And that's when things started to become a bit clearer. Levi, do you remember when you asked me if we were dreaming? Asked Ivy as she stared wide-eyed at the scene before her. I sure do, replied Levi, knowing exactly what she was going to say next. After seeing this, I'd say yes, we are definitely dreaming, said Ivy with a big smile. We did it, Ivy! We made our drawings come to life. Ivy couldn't even answer her brother because she was at a loss for words. What had only been moments ago a drawing in her drawing pad was now a seemingly endless, wonderful world spreading out before them. It's Topsy Turvy! Shouted Levi as he jumped from his hazy dole out of focus reality and into something amazing. And it looked like the world they had talked about and drawn, things they had only imagined, were now right there in front of them, and there was only one thing to do. Let's go! Shouted Ivy and Levi as they ran towards the topsy-turvy terrain. Their first steps had them walking in the sky as they gazed upwards at the ground that stretched out over our heads. Birds flew around by their feet as they carefully walked through a sea of blue sky. Bunnies and squirrels scurried around overhead in a woodland area that dangled above them like a forest umbrella. Along with the forest, rivers and streams gently rolled along in what would have been the sky at home, with fish flying above as they followed the flowing water. Levi and Ivy couldn't stop smiling as they tried to take in everything around them. It was then that Ivy felt something gently bump her leg. What was that? Exclaimed Ivy as she jumped up thinking it was a little animal. But she quickly discovered when she looked down at her leg that her perspective on the world had to change if she was going to adapt to the world she and Levi had created. It's a bird, Ivy, said Levi as he watched a little blue bird flutter around Ivy's legs before continuing on its way. Levi, look out! Shouted Ivy, pointing over her brother's shoulders as he turned around and came face to face with a cloud. The water vapor-filled, fluffy puffs seemed to vanish as it touched his face, making him giggle. That was awesome. You need to try it, said Levi to Ivy. Ivy quickly turned around and saw a small cloud floating her way. She ran toward it, and as the fluffy puff made up of teeny tiny water droplets softly smashed into her, she spun around and danced in the sky. Topsy-turvy was better than she could have ever imagined. Levi felt the same way, completely focused on only the clouds around them. Levi and Ivy decided to play a game of follow the leader, and as they did so, they hopped from cloud to cloud, laughing as they went. Try this, called out Levi as he did a handstand on one of the passing clouds. Everything looks like it's back to normal. Wow, exclaimed Ivy, doing a handstand too. You're right. It's pretty amazing what things look like when you just change your perspective a bit, said a voice that Ivy thought was Levi. That's a really smart thing to say, Levi, Ivy replied as she plopped back down on her feet and stood up. Thank you so much, but my name isn't Levi, it's Updo, said the little fairy-like creature that was walking up to Levi and Ivy. I live here in the world you created. It's pretty amazing. You both did a great job. Levi and Ivy once again couldn't believe their eyes, but they didn't want to miss even a second of getting to know this little creature and learning more about Topsy-Turvy from him. We're so happy you like it here, said Ivy. This is my brother Levi, and he's the one who had the idea for this place. Did you say your name was Updo? Asked Levi. Oh, now I get it. It's the first part of the words upside and down. Updo. That is exactly right, said Updo as he jumped on a cloud as it drifted by. So where are you two coming from? Did you have to take a plane? Like that one? You may want to step over this way. Updo pointed behind Levi and Ivy, and as they turned around, they saw a giant plane flying their way. They quickly stepped aside as the plane soared right next to them. Levi and Ivy stared with wide eyes and a look of pure astonishment on their faces. Why do you look so surprised? Asked Updo, still jumping up and down on the cloud like it was a fluffy trampoline. Well, where we're from, planes fly in the sky, explained Ivy. Yeah, same here. We're standing in the sky right now, said Updo. Yes, this is the sky, but in our world, the sky is above your head, not under your feet, said Levi, trying to explain. We walk on the ground at home. Like what's up there? Updo was now the one that looked completely shocked. Wow, that sounds really different, but kind of cool, said Updo. Updo just looked at Levi and Ivy as if he couldn't understand them at all. But as time went on, they would see that they had more in common than they thought. "So, how about I show you around here a little bit?" said Updo. "But I guess you created Topsy Turvy, so you probably have a pretty good idea of what it looks like, don't you?" "Actually, we'd love a little tour," said Levi. "Drawing it on paper and seeing it in real life are two totally different things." Updo smiled big and with a wave of his hand asked Levi and Ivy to follow him. As they went along, stringing vines and long tree branches covered in leaves ruffled their hair and tickled their noses from above. As they looked upward, green grassy meadows and rolling hills took place of the sun and clouds in their usual sky. Birds flying up by their feet started to become normal as they went on with their day following Updo around Topsy Turvy. Seeing chipmunks and the occasional squirrel running on the branches dangling from above was becoming normal as well. Soft, pillowy clouds floated by them, and as amazing as it was, Levi and Ivy couldn't help but wonder if they could get up to the ground area of this world. They wanted to try and climb up an upside-down tree or splash in an upside-down stream or play in an upside-down playground. However, just like back home, Levi and Ivy couldn't just pop into the sky anytime they wanted to. They could only view it from below and marvel at the stunning things above their head. But since they knew this dream would be coming to an end sooner rather than later, they decided they had to ask Updo. "Updo, is there a way to get up there?" asked Ivy, pointing at the ground, trees, plants, and streams above their head. "There is, but it's not something we do all the time," said Updo. "How do you get to the place above your heads in the world that you come from?" "We take a plane or a rocket or a hot air balloon," started Levi before Updo interrupted him. "Hot air balloon? I have one of those," said Updo, sounding very proud of himself. "Everyone has a way to get up there. It's definitely fun, but we tend to spend most of our time right here." "Same with us, except, well, just the opposite," laughed Levi. "Yep, we spend almost all of our time on the ground and only go to the sky every once in a while, like if we're going on a plane trip," said Ivy. "Or sometimes it feels like we're in the sky when we go up in our tree house." "Tree house?" asked Updo, sounding confused. "It's a little wooden house that you build at the top of a tall tree. It makes a great hideout or fort, and it's fun to get a different view of the world from up there," said Levi. "It would be hard to build a house at the top of a tree in Topsy Turvy, since you'd be building in the roots and not the pretty leafy branches," said Updo. "Oh yeah, because they're upside down," said Ivy. "We make cloud houses here," said Updo, pointing to a huge cloud in front of them. "That would be a great cloud to use because it's nice and tall." "So different, but so similar," observed Levi as they followed Updo through a maze of fluffy clouds and past a series of warm sunbeams. "Here we are," declared Updo. "My hot air balloon. I'll have it ready to go in just a bit, and we'll be soaring through the ground in no time." That just sounded so strange to Levi and Ivy, but as they looked around Topsy Turvy, it couldn't have made more sense. It was then that they really started to realize there were many different ways to look at things, and seeing things from another person's point of view was fun to do. As they waited for Updo to finish getting his hot air balloon ready, Levi and Ivy heard a low rumbling that got louder and louder. They nervously looked at each other, thinking they knew what was happening because they had both been learning about natural disasters in school. "Updo, I think we better get inside," called out Levi. "I think we should too," added Ivy. "Do you hear that rumbling and feel that shaking? I think we're having an earthquake." "I can assure you it's not an earthquake," said Updo. "How could it be? This is the sky. I think what you're feeling is a little thunderstorm." Updo, being very used to the occasional storm, just like Levi and Ivy when they were back home, continued to work on his hot air balloon. "We'll definitely wait for the storm to pass before we go, but for right now, we'll be okay. There's no lightning," said Updo as he tried to calm his friends. "Just try to enjoy the rain. It's really a lot of fun here." "It can be fun back home too," said Levi, starting to relax after listening to Updo. "Especially when it's a sun shower or warm summer rain." "Dancing in the rain is one of my favorite things to do," said Ivy. "Well, dance away," laughed Updo as the rain began. Levi and Ivy gazed upward, forgetting for a moment that everything in Topsy Turvy was upside down from what they knew. And as they waited for the drips and drops of cool, wet rain to fall on them, they got a big surprise when the rain shower started and sprayed their feet first. Then, just like they had imagined, the rain picked up and it was like they were playing in the world's biggest sprinkler. The raindrops tickled their toes as they ran around enjoying this unique topsy-turvy experience. As the little storm slowly stopped, Levi and Ivy felt the warm rays of the sun warming them. And since they were a lot closer than normal to the sun, they dried off from head to toe in no time. And the timing couldn't have been better because just as the last raindrops dried up, Updo's hot air balloon was ready to go. "Jump aboard," called Updo as he waved Levi and Ivy into his hot air balloon. And away we go. Levi and Ivy watched as the sky below them grew smaller and smaller as they floated up, or in their minds down, to the ground. As they got closer and closer, they could see even better just how different things were in this part of Topsy Turvy. "How about we start by that stream?" suggested Updo as he steered his hot air balloon toward the floating water above their heads. "Once we get close enough, you can reach up and touch it." "Reach up and touch the stream," said Levi. "So weird, but so cool." "You can also reach up and grab a flower if you'd like," said Updo. "But of course, we can't land because there's nowhere to do that. Just like you can't park a plane in the sky and get out and walk around in your world, you can't park a hot air balloon and get out and explore. Sorry about that." "Then how do the animals manage to stay up here? Or down there?" "Oh, I'm getting all confused," said Ivy with a giggle. "Up, down, this way, that way, no matter what you say, I understand you," giggled Updo. "And the animals can run around here the same way that birds fly through the sky back where you live. They're adapted to living here, so they can." "Got it," said Levi. "Don't think too much about it, Ivy. Just enjoy this place. Who knows how much time we've got left here?" "I know, it seems like we've been here all night already," said Ivy. "I hope our dream doesn't end anytime soon." Just then, something unusual happened. I guess everything that's happening in this story has been a bit unusual, so we'll just say something else unusual happened at that moment. As Levi and Ivy were looking around from the hot air balloon, a little chipmunk walked towards them as it crawled across a long tree branch that stretched out towards the three explorers. "Hello there, little buddy," said Levi as he laughed. "When's the last time you had to take a hot air balloon to see a chipmunk?" Ivy laughed along with him as Updo replied, "Last month." They all laughed as fish jumped out of the stream in front of them, almost landing on their balloon basket as they swam through the open air. As the far end of the stream, they watched as a beautiful waterfall fell gently on the water. And even though it was upside down, seemingly defying gravity as it flowed into the stream from below instead of above, to Levi and Ivy, it was just as breathtaking as any waterfall they had ever seen. As the turtle scuttled by the edge of the stream, it brushed against a cluster of tall reeds. The rain from earlier was still soaked into the reeds, and as they moved, it dropped water on Levi, Ivy, and Updo. "Now that's the kind of rain we're used to," said Levi as the water drops fell on his head. "I like it," said Updo. "Instead of tickling your feet, it drip drops on your head and runs down your nose. And we like your rain too," said Ivy. "After all, it's still rain, no matter where it comes from." And as the three explorers continued their hot air balloon flight around Topsy Turvy, Ivy noticed that it was getting a bit cooler. And it wasn't just because they were at the ground level and further from the sun than it was before. It was because the sun was setting. The day was coming to an end. So Levi and Ivy watched as the sun slowly sank behind some clouds that painted the sky around it in light pinks and purples. Updo steered the hot air balloon back to the sky level of Topsy Turvy and landed it perfectly on a large, fluffy cloud. The birds that once dotted the sky at their feet now gave way to quick flying bats, out for a usual nighttime snack. And with the end of the day came another incredible Topsy-Turvy visual display. It was then that Levi and Ivy were hopping out of the hot air balloon. They noticed a familiar giant silver orb beginning to rise into view. "The moon!" exclaimed Ivy, who was a huge fan of outer space. "It's so close and so beautiful." "If you think that's beautiful," said Updo, "then just wait another few seconds." "What could be more beautiful than that?" asked Ivy, but she didn't have to wait very long for her answer. "Wow," said Levi and Ivy together as they looked all around in absolute amazement, surrounded by millions of glowing, twinkling stars. "Does it look like your drawings? Is it just what you imagined?" asked Updo. "Even better," whispered Ivy as if she didn't want the littlest sound to disturb the wonder and magic of the moment. As the stars glistened and sparkled in the sky, Ivy and Levi began to carefully walk among them. They played their own game of connect the dots as they strolled through the constellations and gazed at distant planets that were now closer than ever. I found Orion's belt, said Levi, pointing toward a group of stars. And that's the Big Dipper, called it back Ivy. And that's the end, said Updo. The end? I've never heard of that constellation before, said Ivy, sounding a bit confused but excited. Oh, is it a Topsy Turvy constellation? One that's all upside down? Where is it? I want to see. No, Ivy, it's not a constellation, answered Updo, looking a bit sad. I am sorry to say, but that's the end of your adventure here in Topsy Turvy. What do you mean? Asked Levi. Do you see that little bright light in the distance? Said Updo. I saw that little light just before you arrived. It's the nightlight in your bedroom. I believe that's the sign for you to head back home. Levi and Ivy took a closer look, and Updo was right. A wispy cloud drifted past them like thin, cuddly blankets as they saw Updo look tired and knew they had to go. I see. It only makes sense that if it's morning time for us back home, that it would be night for you here in Topsy Turvy, said Ivy. And morning time means time to wake up from your dreams. Even if you don't want to, added Levi. I know. I feel the same way, said Ivy. I wish we could stay here longer. There's still so much I want to see. And we'd love to get to know you better, Updo, and the amazing world that you live in, said Levi. I think that sounds like a wonderful idea, exclaimed Updo. How about we plan for another Topsy-Turvy dream soon? That sounds great, but how do we do that? Asked Ivy. I think your drawings help get you here, so maybe if you draw a bit more of this wonderful world, you can come back and visit what you created again soon, exclaimed Updo. That sounds like an amazing idea, said Levi and Ivy together. This was so much more than a fun dream, though. Updo, you've taught us a really valuable lesson, one that we'll never forget, said Ivy. Yeah, we learned from our adventures with you that Topsy Turvy may look different than our world, but in lots of ways it's very much the same, said Levi. And it doesn't matter which way the rain falls or where the ground is or how close you can get to the moon and stars. As long as you stay curious and open to adventure, the world is full of possibilities and wonder, added Ivy. And there's always something new to learn and see when you're open to see it from a new perspective. I couldn't have said it better myself, said Updo with a little tear in his eye. I better be heading off to bed. I think you two have some drawings to do. Sounds good to us, said Levi. Goodbye, Updo, said Levi and Ivy as they turned to head home in the distance. We'll see you soon. As Updo waved goodbye and the stars sparkled and began to swirl around Levi and Ivy, then they stopped, closed their eyes, and the next thing they knew, they were waking up back in their beds at home. The first thing they did when they woke up was run to the bedroom window. Looking outside, they saw the world that greeted them was the world they had always known. Levi and Ivy were happy to be home, but couldn't hide that they were also a bit sad not to be standing with their feet in the clouds, staring up at streams, rolling meadows, and upside-down trees from their heads. That was an amazing dream, said Levi. I can't wait to get back to Topsy Turvy and see Updo again, added Ivy. And they both knew that the only way to do that was to start on creating some new drawings, adding to Topsy Turvy and creating even more amazing adventures to go on with their new friend. A friend who they learned was very much like them in a lot of different ways. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun Lively Lewis story with you.